My name is Dave Greco. I have been a concept artist in the game industry for about 16 years. I actually am currently a freelance illustrator. So was 16 years in the industry. In the past, I'm about to hit a year of being completely freelance, but I do mostly illustration work. Sometimes I'll still do concept art for studios. From just studios from like EA to THQ, which doesn't really exist anymore, to a bunch of other smaller studios. And I currently do a lot of work for like Blizzard Entertainment or Magic the Gathering. And so we're going to kind of go through the entire process, kind of what it's like if you're at a studio, working with designers, all that stuff. And I think the discussion is really, really good because there's always a big question about kind of what is the role of a concept artist at a studio. And it can be a lot of different things. So I'm gonna go through like my process, and we're gonna try. This workshop is about 2 hours. This is Marlo. He's gonna jump up here like crazy every time I talk on my monitor. This cat is up here. It's totally insane, guys. But thank you so much for the follows. And I can show you if you guys want to see real quick. I'm just gonna put it on screen. If you haven't seen my work before, I can bring up my art station real quick if you haven't seen it. I know, Marlo, you want to say hi. So we do have that. So a lot of my work up on my portfolio right now is, let me just move this, is a lot of like illustration work. But like most of my career was doing concept art, and it's something I've kind of shifted over to. So we're gonna go kind of over that kind of concept art process today. All right, and then and there's always links to my socials if you do want to check out my work some more. That's a great place to check it out. And just another message for people, because we do stream art on here quite a bit. So if there are alerts coming up, they're just not going to come up on stream today, so we can be a little bit more focused and have a nice clean VOD for people that want to watch this later. So what I want to do, if this cat gives me a chance today, so I have a really good friend of mine. He's been a designer in the game industry for about 20 years. And I hit him up and I want to be like, I want to do like a quick workshop about what the actual process is when you are, when we're at the studio. I've worked with him on multiple games before, some more successful than others. We did at one point work on Superman Returns at EA, which is, you work in the game industry long enough, you're going to have a couple of games you work on that are less than stellar, or kind of like a nightmare scenario. I was like, send me a task, like we're still working there, and what it would be like. So I encourage anyone, if you have like your own sketchbook or you're drawing your own thing digitally, feel free to make your own version. And we intentionally left it pretty vague so we can kind of go off on a lot of different directions, right? And so this is the description that he sent me. And so we can go over this. And, sometimes the designer, they just have like bits of their levels or things that they're thinking of, and it may not be super specific. They might have an idea, but it's then up to you as a concept artist to take that and try to generate a whole bunch of ideas for them and have like a really nice back and forth process. I think a lot of people always look at concept art and think, well, there's also the confusion sometimes between like, illustration and concept art, which sometimes you could be tasked with both. But there's a lot of idea of concept art being something that just gets shifted from you over to the modeling team, which definitely is a part of it. But before you get to that stage, the really important like meat and potatoes part of concept is that back and forth you're going to have with the designer. It could be the art director, the specific designer, and maybe some other leads on the team, when you're just doing kind of like idea generation. And so that type of creativity and be able to kind of free flow ideas is like, it's super, super important. Now I found that the best process, and I feel like I've always made designers a lot happier, is to have a really, really nice back and forth, right? So what I'm gonna start with today, and what I usually like to do, is just start with like quick like silhouette design. Marlo, that might be the worst place for you to lay right now for me to try to draw. So we might have to do a bit of a shift. All right. Let me know if anyone else is having any stream or lag. I hope not. We have had some stream issues. So I'm going to turn the description off, and he'll be back in like 5 minutes. And then we'll put the description back and forth. It's smooth. Okay, perfect. Okay. Oh, and actually, this is one thing too. And I love it when designers do this, and he always did this, is he sent me a bunch of like references, right? So we had this description, and then he sent some kind of like, sometimes they'll send you some like mood or ideas that they were thinking of. And you don't have to stick with these things, right? It's a good jumping off place, but don't feel like you ever have to be stuck with it. And, like I've worked with this guy for so long that I'm like, okay, I don't have to do something that looks exactly like these things, right? I kind of know where he wants this kind of like spooky wood vibe. That's enough, but it's a cool place to start, right? And so it was really nice for him to send those over. Sometimes you'll get very specific descriptions. Sometimes they're a little less so. So I think the best thing for me usually is to start super loose. And let's see if my computer decides to lag. Well, I think I'm painting the exact same color. That's probably why. So most of my work, I just do in Photoshop. A lot of artists use tons of different things. You can use like Clip Studio Paint or anything. I think they're all awesome. I think it doesn't really matter too much. I'm going to try to be aware of everything on that side here so you can see it. But even at these beginning stages, I like to stay super loose. And I'm just thinking of what a weird silhouette and design might be. Right? It's almost like I'm trying to just keep my hand moving as fast as possible. Like if there was like a ground plane here, is it actually have feet? Is it all kind of roots at the bottom? And you can really mess around with it. And then I think like when you say loose and messy, you can really think of a whole bunch of different ideas. If there was like trees and leaves, but we're really just trying to get stuff down as quick as possible. I think at the end, I think we can try to do a whole bunch of questions near the end as well. I actually have a bunch of kind of doodles like this prepped up also, since we have about 2 hours for this and I want to see how much we can get done. It's a pretty tight time frame. Usually in the industry you have about, in my experience, usually like 2 days for a character, which could be from idea to final, which seems pretty fast, but when you're able to kind of sit there, put your music on and kind of just draw, it's a reasonable amount of time and you get used to it. So I have some prepped up just in case, just so we can skip ahead. And I'm gonna have everybody in chat here vote on which design we start to clean up, right? And I don't even like to spend too much time. Like if it was something that was really large or hunched over, I'll put my mic up here a little bit. And I'm really just trying to see, and sometimes like these messy shapes on the inside will just kind of give me random ideas. Maybe this hands are hunched over here. Like I said, this is really, really messy, but at this stage it's totally fine. This is like you're kind of just starting on the assignment and you're trying to see what works or what doesn't work. How much kind of like plant life is going to be on this person or creature. And he talked about having like large hammers. We can kind of just get something down here. And I usually like to do a sheet of like, I would say, if I could get like a decent 8 down, right? That might be pretty good. Maybe this leg, it looks like huge and it kind of drags on the ground. You can start to think of like new stories as you're working on it, right? Yeah, maybe I'll keep the description up for you guys, and I'll try to paint underneath it. Our workspace is getting smaller and smaller. Let me actually do this. Let me move this up. We're gonna have no workspace left by the end of it. Let's just move this down here. Because one thing I was thinking too, that like when I was looking at the description before too, he mentions those like little creatures maybe being like knee size, but one thing that was always nice with working with designers is sometimes you'd be like, well, what if this is like one main creature and the creature is actually huge and centered in this forest, and maybe they don't move, they're just used as like kind of like a nice spot of interest in the level. Yeah, and you can always work, like you can mess with these shapes and you get some ideas down. So we're gonna take these silhouettes, pick one, and then we're gonna start cleaning it up and kind of pretend there's kind of like a designer back and forth, or maybe an art director came over and hit you up, right? Because what I would want to do is get a bunch of these down and like boom, I wouldn't even touch this one. Like say if this was like 1 and 2, that's fine. I don't need to mess with these. Sometimes some things are working, sometimes they're not. But I don't want to get like hung up on it. I want to keep working. And I've always found, and there's well, okay, not always, but it has happened a lot where I feel like I've gotten like most of my ideas down, and then I try to squeak out like 3 or 4 more. And I always find those last ones are kind of the ones that hit. Right? Like, and I had maybe it's something that's like really hunched over. He's got like his hand down here. And if this was his body, like I said, you can just stay like really, really messy. I'm thinking about something that maybe that looks like it's been here for like 1,000 years. And maybe I like to put this kind of like just ground plane so I can kind of see what might be going on here. And maybe he looked like he was crouched, but his hand was on. Maybe he's got this kind of like smaller hammer. You know, and you actually had like little trees here. Oh, we need to change. Sorry, real quick. I do need to change the name of the title for it because this is sponsored by. Workshop is sponsored by WACOM, by the way. Let's see here. Okay. There we go. I'm going to try to get to see chat and questions as much as we can during this. I'm usually pretty good at looking at chat, but I want to try to stay a little bit focused on kind of what we're trying to do here. It does kind of seem like a Spriggan, but I think we can go. I think we can just go off of it. Like I said, you know, I think this is a great place. It's really hard to do any type of work when you don't have any directions. So and people are coming in here now. I had a really good designer friend of mine. He's made a ton of titles. I think he wants to remain a little bit anonymous. But you know, he's been in the game industry for 20 years. I've worked with him a ton, and I had him give me a description just like he always had for anything that we worked on before. And this is exactly the type of stuff that he used to send me. And we have Marlo once again. I know. We're trying here, Marlo. Okay. Like I said, maybe the head is kind of down here. I don't know like how crazy they might want to look. We could have like vines and everything hanging in between. Like maybe this is actually like player height down here, right? Maybe some part of this level you walk below. You know, and this is one of the most fun stages of doing concept because you're not having to like really figure out all the specifics. That's going to go to a modeler. And You never want to make the modelers crazy. I've learned a lot of good lessons over my years as doing concept, as trying to make things look too fancy or putting too much crazy light and colors on it. And they're like, Dave, I don't know what I'm supposed to model. You have them doing this weird pose. I can't see half their chest. You have a spotlight on half of them. So they're all good lessons. And so I think one of the biggest things we should talk about today is kind of what your goals are as concepts. Because I think I see a lot of discussions about what concept is. And I think it's actually a ton of things. People usually say what concept art isn't. And I don't always agree with that. You know, I think some people want to go into concept art and they also think they're going to be doing like, you know, League of Legends, like splash images. There is a chance, if you are a concept artist, that you could be tasked with doing a finished illustration for the project. That could be something you do as a concept artist. As a concept artist, you have a ton of roles at the studio. You are getting the entire team on the same page. You are front loading the project. You're working with the writers and the designers. And so you're creating that previs that the entire team can be like, oh, this is the game that we are making, right? So that's, you know, one part of the job. Your visual inspiration, trying to get like ideas flowing. Sometimes some of the designers or writers don't really know, so you're trying to fill in those blanks. You are also creating art to be used for asset generation. You may be doing paint overs of environments that's going to go up to the environment team. You may be doing very kind of static, detailed images that's going to go to the modeler, because they just need to take your piece, get it modeled and textured, and keep the pipeline going, right? You may be tasked for doing some, you know, splash images or final pieces for the website, for promotion. Studios love using concept art for promotional for promotion, because they can get it out sooner. They don't have to wait for like a final screenshot, right? They can get a lot of hype going with concept art, and they're not stuck with it, right? Like they show like a really cool piece of concept art, then I'd be like, well, that's not what the, you know, this is an idea of what the game could look like, but they can't really show like final screenshots of the game when there's still like years of development left. So you have a lot of things on your plate, and it's pretty awesome. It's pretty cool. Actually, it's more than pretty cool. I loved every part of it. To draw something that you thought of, and then to see it go through an entire pipeline and spit out the other end, and to see it in a game is pretty amazing. It is really a really generally amazing feeling. So there's that little thing. So anyone that is looking to get into it, when I had first heard about getting a job, that there even was a career as a concept artist, I knew it was 1,000% what I wanted to do way back in the day, which for me was quite a long time ago. You know, sometimes I may put like a little bit of a lighter light on top. Like if we just put like a little top down lighting here, just so I can kind of break out the piece and see what I'm working with here. Just so I can kind of get an idea of something, right? Of like where his arm and all these muscles are. Doesn't have to be anything too crazy, right? I'm just getting kind of a quick idea. I have not really gotten an injury before. I have had some carpal tunnel issues on my left hand before, but that was really about it. And that was actually years ago. I'm actually surprised I haven't had much. So yeah, let's try to do a couple more silhouettes, and then I already have 5 silhouettes prepped. We can even combine them all if we want. But I have some I like on the other sheet too. I had some prepared in case I just could not think of anything. Oh, we could make a large mushroom hammer. These are all ideas that are cool. I think like it's always worth like this one. It could have been like a mushroom hammer, right? Although it might, like, if it was actually made of a mushroom though, maybe it'll have like rotted by now though. But sometimes you can put stuff into concept that just looks cool for the sake of looking cool. I'm always a big fan of that. I've worked with concept artists that are very much into kind of like what's realistic or reasonable, and I'm kind of on the other side that like I'd rather it just be super cool, right? But this is one of the best parts of working on it, because let me make sure nothing's being cut off from this up here. Okay, there we go. Because you're usually kind of like in a meeting, or like the designer might come to your office, if we work back in studios again, and you have that discussion, and then, like most things, your head starts just like floating with images. So many meetings I used to be in, and I couldn't wait to get out of the meeting so I could get back to my desk and just put music on and just start jamming stuff like crazy. And so we'll try to get a couple more here. I figure we'll do these silhouettes till about 5:30, and then we're gonna pull up the other ones and then see where we go from there. Because this is kind of like just a first stage. This one, I think, I might go with some type of like treetop version over here. I think the best thing for these is just to keep like your hand moving. I used to listen to like a lot of I mean, the music I listen to, I've listened to like a lot of the same music for a long time. It's either like, post-hardcore, metalcore stuff that I probably shouldn't listen to anymore, but I still do. This one is probably just a little too ridiculous. I almost have this idea of, we'll zoom in. Sometimes like these subtle shapes just give me weird ideas, but I like to tuck them away, and I think it's nice that designers can have it. This person's almost like tucked into like this weird rock face. Maybe it was these old weird robes with this kind of treetop thing happening around. Oh yeah, radar, we're gonna do it. So the prepare stuff was just me kind of sketching this exact assignment while I just watched a couple other Lightbox events earlier today. Chiplin, that's a good question. Have I ever had trouble thinking of stuff like this? Yeah, absolutely. And try not to beat yourself up too much in cases like this, because it totally happens to everybody. Like sometimes I'll get a description or something and I will legit have nothing. Right? Like I'll have no ideas in my head. Nothing popped in. There was no grand visions of this awesome character. And I kind of just leave, and I just kind of like sit there, and I was like, oh boy. And then what actually helps me a lot? And because the worst thing you can do for anyone to do is open up a blank canvas and just stare at your screen. It's gonna be really terrible. Your brain is not gonna move whatsoever. It's gonna feel crazy, right? So like, you want to keep imagery moving in your head. And so sometimes like I would just go for like a quick walk, even if it was like a 10-minute walk around the building, or like, I just go outside and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just go get a coffee, and I kind of just will start daydreaming, right? And I have found like 95% of the time I'll have at least a couple ideas to jam on by the time I get back to my desk, right? But the worst thing I could have done was just kind of sat there and panicked, right? And I still go through that. I still get some pieces. There's still some assignments that I get for Hearthstone or Magic or anything, and I get the description, I'm just like, well, this is the last assignment I'm ever getting, because I cannot paint this. I don't know what to paint. I don't know how to present it. But at some point, we all get there. We will all find the finish line eventually, right? Sometimes you just have to dig deeper, and it's the worst because sometimes it feels like a real struggle sometimes. So this one's almost like a person kind of sitting in this weird formation. This one, probably one that wouldn't work, but we'll get it down. I was just kind of trying something here. Like I said, it's fine to get as many down as possible. Any team's always going to be super pumped if you just show them a ton of stuff, right? Yeah, I would show sketches like this to the client, but so this is very specific to like a game studio position where I would be like, I'd either I might call it a designer over at this point. I could also get the art director over and be like, hey, I'm trying to, I got some quick ideas. I would probably still do some more than this. I'm like, can we, and then sometimes you could have questions. So you're like, how stuck are we on the size of the character? Does it have to be like human size? Can it be like 2 or 3 times larger? Does it matter if it's a male or female character? Can it, all these different things? And they might be like, hey, we're totally open. Just try something out. Yeah, this is kind of 4 stagey. So we're going a bunch of different directions. Like I said, that's a description right there. But this description right here is just a jumping off point for us. I think we could totally kind of free float around some design ideas. And that's always something that's really specific too. I think it's mostly because I've worked with this designer quite a bit before that I can kind of tell kind of how vague it is that, they might be really open to some stuff. And that, usually the description would be really hyper specific if they want. But that's something you play with as you work with, more designers and everything over time. But this type of stuff is really great too if anyone's looking to get into concept art and the stuff for your portfolio. I think the showing that kind of creativity is really, really huge, and your ability to generate ideas, right? My experience working with a lot of different concept artists, and I've been a lead concept art on a couple teams managing, I think, our teams haven't been super huge, but I have managed teams of like 8 other concept artists ranging from associates all the way to seniors. And one of the best things we could always have is really comes down to their creativity and able to, idea generation, right? So, because, most artists can learn to render better as they go. They can learn to tackle lighting in new ways as they have more years in the industry. But sometimes it's harder to find someone that can really kind of throw themselves in there and think of a lot of like random ideas, or sometimes they have trouble kind of breaking off the designer description, right? So to me, that's super, super important when it comes to concept, is that type of idea generation. Okay, so I'm gonna pull open some of our other sketches that we did where I had some kind of strange ideas as well. And so Lithy, let me see here. Let me pull this open first. So these are the designs I did earlier. Let me get rid of this description at the top. And I had them labeled so we could vote on them. Let me make sure. Okay, so we had, and I did it like a little bit more kind of like, but they're still kind of super loose. This one is kind of more this kind of like, she's kind of like this wooden creepy witch, and she's got all these like little minions that are kind of like dancing around the bottom. This one was kind of a variation of that one, but it was more kind of like up on this large tree where this person came out of the top. And then this one, they're really loose, so bear with me. But I like to keep them just kind of crazy. I feel like your eyes can kind of interpret a lot of like weird details in here. You know what I'm saying? And so this one was kind of like buried in the rocks, and it looks like he's kind of leaning over, peering, and he's got this huge 2-handed kind of mace on the back, right? With this kind of like tree and vegetation on here. This one I thought was pretty cool. It's almost like this huge, like really large beast, and it was like his face was almost kind of coming out under these kind of rocky crags with these little like mushroom demon dudes down here while holding like this huge like, hammer. And we can do some more kind of vegetation here. And then this one, I mean, this is probably my least favorite one, but this was more of it kind of like, looks like it was idea of something crawling with like kind of like the moss and the bark, and maybe it shifted around the woods, right? With these large vines. So I want to put up a poll on the stream. Lithy, do we have that? It was, so people could either vote for A, B, C, D, or E. And then we can go kind of the next stage, and we can kind of mimic the idea say the designer came over, is like, oh, dude, you know, this one is hitting. Let's bring up this one and see where we can go. This is actually really, so poll is up right now. If you're new here on Twitch, you can just go up to the top, which design is your favorite, and we can do it from there. This is pretty fun, guys. Thanks so much for keeping me company today and being so awesome in chat. I really appreciate it. I think you have to click it. You have to click the thing at the top, guys. You have to see the thing at the top, the current poll. It's the current poll at the top. There's a poll at the top of the Twitch stream. Marla, which one do you think? Meow for A or C? Because that seems to be, a lot of people like C. All right. I didn't think C was going to be the pick. I thought, for some reason, I thought people would go towards D. Oh my gosh, Marlo. He's going to knock stuff off the desk. Key Dry, I'm not sure. What's up, Zyros? Hey, we might be able to work up a couple, okay? Depends how far we want to get. A might be closer to the description, but it's not, might not be as unique, I'm not sure. A does offer up long wooden hair, which is a big plus. It does seem like the prompt more, I agree. It does seem a little bit more like the prompt. What? Sophia's here? So we can do a whole bunch of that. I see you, Megan. I wish I could do them all. I feel like whenever I pick, people are going to be like irritated. So, okay, let's, it's only got a little bit long. I'll let the poll run to the end, but it does look like A or C is kind of cleaning up. I'm sorry, E, but you got destroyed, which is fine because E is kind of boring. But like I said, so honestly, what you could do is you could spend a couple hours on this stage. I think, you know, at a studio, I think, yeah, any art director, anyone would be happy to see a bunch of different ideas. You know, you could try to work them up a bit. This is actually something that I have found, and it might not be as crucial in this stage, but I'm talking from experience. And actually, this is actually a good moment for a big reminder for everybody. So you're gonna be seeing lots of different things at Lightbox on this stream included, and this is just one way to do something. This is the way that I usually tackle things. I think the best thing people can always take away from any talk you listen to is just take little bits and pieces of different classes, how you can bring that into your own work. I know some concept artists that work completely different than this. And I incorporate a lot of line work with my work as well. And a lot of artists don't, but this is just the way that I do it. All right, so winner is A. All right. So what we can do is let's just take A here. And we're just going to make a brand new piece of A. We can get rid of these other ones for now. And so what we can do is this next stage of kind of working it up, right? What I like to do is start incorporating a little bit of line work, right? Now this isn't like a clean line drawing we're about to do. I know this cat is gonna get eaten like crazy. I can't paint with him right here. So what we're probably gonna do is we're gonna up-res this thing because it doesn't matter the quality of this at this point. I pretty much always work with my pieces at 300 resolution. I'm trying to frame this so you guys aren't losing any information here on stream. Oh, I did. I have a brand new coffee. Thank you. Okay. You can either drop the opacity on this. Sometimes I'll make a new layer, and it's almost like putting like a piece of tracing paper over it, right? Sorry, I have my layers covered now too. It's just, if people do want to see that, my layers aren't super interesting. All right. So we're going to put our brushes. I do have a lot of brushes. I don't use nearly this amount of brushes. I use like 4 brushes ever. I should probably clean up my brush library. It's a little overloaded. And so what we're going to do is just start cleaning up and see what we can do with some of these shapes. And you know what? This is what I actually really like about this messiness, right? So we started really messy at the beginning. And like, I didn't mean for this to happen, but look how, I think I was trying to draw like normal fingers, but maybe some of this messiness just gives us a bunch of ideas. And it's cool when you work on stuff like this that doesn't have to adhere to so much perfection, right? If you're doing like a game where maybe I've worked on a lot of first person shooters before, where you have to do very specific, like these are exact proportions, these are the vests that they have to work on, and you can't be as wild with your mark making. Glow Crow, absolutely. I think that all the time. Every assignment I get, I'm like, I can't do this. You know, so I like to take this base, and I'm going to stay actually pretty messy still. Like, I have an idea of where a nose could be, but I don't know, you know, we're not going to make this look like some type of pristine piece here. She should be pretty creepy. I think like we'll give her eyes, and maybe the eyes are closed, right? But we looked at a bunch of the reference before about pieces, maybe parts being broken off, and maybe we can really mess with that idea of what is this character. Like I said, we don't have to adhere to anything. We can stay messy. We're just using some of this sketch in the back. And we're gonna kind of figure out what we can do with it. I like this idea that she's almost got these like horns coming out of the top. And like I said, we're thinking a lot about like interesting shapes we can do with all this stuff that's coming out. Like I said, I like to use line to figure this stuff out. It just, like I said, a lot of artists, they like to use, like they like to block in shape and light and value. I really fall in love with a lot of like line work. You know, I definitely was a huge kind of comic nut growing up, and for a long time I saw my career as going into comics, and so I still love really nice line work. You know, maybe she's got like crazy fingers or something. Who knows? It's been here for a long time, so we'll have like moss and leaves and everything that's kind of popping off it, right? I kind of just dabble in these little like wood shapes. Yes, Drummondson. So anyone that is coming in, I'm gonna have this on a VOD, and I'll also be putting this up on the YouTube channel. I think !YouTube, or there'll be people putting where that channel is. And I'm just gonna put the entire video straight up on YouTube, so people can always watch this, because I think it's just a cool thing to check out. Maybe people can try some of this process for their own work, right? And where like the top of the head could be, I like the idea of it maybe being kind of deformed up here, maybe kind of splintered off. So I like to do a couple stages of this kind of line work, right? I think !YouTube. Oh, there, someone put it right up above. We do tutorials on YouTube. It's not the most active YouTube channel. It's hard for me to fit in that stuff sometimes. You know, maybe she used to be some type of dryad or elf that turned who knows what. Like I said, we're just kind of figuring out little kind of shapes, how her body might be. Like this part, I just really love this part of any painting, because it's really, you're allowed to be super messy, right? And we could have all these little things hanging off. And then we have this line on its own layer, and we're gonna be able to put a bunch of, you know, value and stuff underneath it. Because we could really dive into at one point, like, kind of what this wood and everything looks like. Oh, and it actually, what's a really good thing to do too, and I do this a lot, is sometimes even before I get started, I make like my own kind of like Pinterest libraries and folders for it. So like really simple things. So like, what are some cool ideas and vibes we could be going for this, right? And I just saved a couple things here. And so I do something like this. I just made like a little Lightbox one. So I was thinking of like cool twisted tree design, right? And these are a lot of like little ideas that you could bring into your piece, right? Of just kind of like the way this kind of nodding and everything looks, and then all these different ideas, you can get like, different vibes and inspiration from it and then bring it in. That's something we could absolutely talk about also. And I know something that is brought up sometimes is the idea of like reference. And reference is amazing. Reference could be your best friend. All professionals use reference. Reference is phenomenal. If reference, it was needed and necessary for all the great masters of art. That means it's good enough and great for the rest of us, right? That's super, super important. One of my big things as far as reference goes, and this can go into concept art or illustration, is that I like to do the piece beforehand, keep it nice and loose, all that, and then try to shoot your reference to fill in the information after the fact. That was something that took me a long time to learn too. I used to shoot a lot of reference beforehand, and then you try to copy the reference, and your piece looks so still and lifeless, right? What you want to do is like try to figure out like this weird angle or the way it's positioned, and then be like, all right, well, I want the head like this, but I'm not sure what the neck is doing when it connects. So let me just look at something. Oh yeah, it's actually coming down here and then coming back. Oh yeah, there's actually more of like a curve back here, or anything like that is really, really important. So I always find shooting the reference kind of after the fact, and you're just using it to fill in gaps of knowledge, right? So I definitely wanted though kind of like that kind of twisted wood that we kind of saw on the other one. Or maybe like this kind of wood comes down. This is gonna look kind of crazy for now, but I think it's okay, and I think it's appropriate for what we're drawing. I like that these arms and everything almost look like they're kind of corrupted and have like seeped in and attached to her. Is photo bashing looked down upon? Let's call this main. No, I don't think so. I was like, what is happening right now? Uh-oh. We may have to do a quick Photoshop restart. That was pretty good, right? If anyone wants, like, this is what true nightmare mode looks like for any working artist when your Photoshop starts doing this. Let me just restart Photoshop real quick. We'll just give you a BRB screen. Yeah, it's saved. Let me just reopen it. You guys get to see me when I was 18 years old. Enjoy that. And let me just restart Photoshop. I just like to make sure I work on a lot of NDA stuff. So I did dress up for episode 1. I was 18 at the time. I didn't know Jar Jar Binks was going to be Jar Jar Binks. So yeah, just that did happen. All right, let me open this up, make sure everything's working. Apologize for all this. Okay, we all gotta have like a little nerd in us, right? Okay, I think we're back. I think it's working. Okay, that was terrifying. You know what? I remember, like, I felt like this is a little off topic. We used to give like episode 1 a lot of grief back then. There was actually like a lot of awesomeness to episode 1. I still think I'm not Jar Jar. Oh my gosh, I almost said that loud. I think Darth Maul is like one of the best characters they ever made too. We'll throw that out there. There's so many amazing things actually that happened in that movie. I know, Cash. That was close. That was close. And so we're still gonna go with the lines, and we're still using a lot of these kind of ideas that we had in the back here. And we're just staying loose. It's almost like you're working on like a gesture drawing, right? It's almost like I don't even pick my pen or pencil up much off the monitor. Oh man. The score for that movie, pretty amazing, pretty amazing. And we're gonna keep going off of this. And maybe we'll find some like cool little curves. I just feel like there's not like a ton of mistakes you can really make at this stage, you know? Because it's almost like we're keeping it loose on top of the loose, right? Like we'll have to dive in later to really kind of see specifically how we want this. Because I'll also say right now, there's actually probably another good thing we should talk about. So know what your audience is when you're doing your concept art, right? And so when you're in a studio, and this is something that comes over actually after a lot of experience, like if you're doing this for like previs for your designer or writer, you can go kind of wild, right? If I was going to do this piece now, that's going to be going over to the modeling team, you really need to know kind of what your restraints are, what is your budget. You know, usually have an idea of like how many bones are being used in your, you know, in the models, or just like what you don't want to do generally is give them a bunch of stuff and like I have like vines hanging out everywhere, you know, give her some like tattered robe off the backside. You know, I'll probably want to try to keep things tight and close to the model if possible. So there might be things that we can figure out different ways to showcase something. You know, maybe this is something that actually doesn't move and we can do a lot more with it, right? Maybe just the head will animate, right? And then we can do a lot of cool stuff hanging with hair. I have a tendency to draw really long-haired characters, and that's gotten me into like a lot of trouble with modelers before. And something we need to do, which we didn't do before, is we need to be flipping our canvas, which actually we got super distracted and we were not flipping. Always flip your canvas, because then you have situations like this where it looks like it's going to fall over. So let's actually grab this. So you want to be flipping a lot. So this might not actually be matching the drawing underneath, but it doesn't really matter right now, since we kind of have a basis right here. I always say flip early, flip often is going to just save you a ton of headache. Well, long hair is tough, right, too? Because then like you have to put like either like a lot of bones in the hair, all that type of stuff, right? And it's just like, it's really hard to make like long hair not like clip through armor, or it can be tough. And I've gotten some grief over it before. Let my pain be a lesson for everybody. I will still try to work in long hair when I can. But that's just little things you just have to be aware of it when you're creating designs, right? How do you navigate very vague prompts for work from clients, and how do you navigate work through inspiration lows and blocks? So this was pretty. Let's put the description back up so we had people, if they did come in late, this kind of what it was. And you know, we're kind of riffing off it. It's, you know, probably like a little different. We could even do some variations of her face too. Like, I don't think this is an interesting face design. Once we got something close, we could actually take out parts of the head and figure out different ways to do that. This part is just a ton of fun because of that. We just have so much open to us, and you just never know what we're gonna think of. You know, I want these kind of like leaf patches coming off. You know, lulls between inspiration and art block are hard. They're really hard. I just went through one of the worst art blocks I've ever had like a month ago. I had a ton of work for clients due. Sometimes it just feels like we just have parts, when we're creating art, that like it feels like your hand's on fire. Like it's just like I don't know what's happening, but I'm just like everything I'm sketching is just the shapes are doing well. For some reason, it's like this composition's just hitting, and then you really appreciate those times, because then you'll have days you're like, I don't think I know how to draw a face anymore. Like everything I'm drawing, like one eye looks like it's twice the size of the other eye. I can't get this neck to look right. And so it's hard to go through those moments, without being like super deflated and discouraged, and time's ticking. You guys are so hard on yourselves. It happens though, but it happens to everybody. And I think that's actually one of the good things. And I know everyone's going to see like so many top talent today and this weekend through Lightbox. But I think that's actually one thing I always try to make known on the stream, and artists that come in and hang out with us, is that at least for me and every other kind of artist I talk to that it happens with, is that I think no matter your level, that it happens to everybody, and we all go through these exact same phases. And I think we're all playing this crazy, insane, complicated game of having a career in art, and it's very hard to be creative every single day. This may actually just turn into like a big therapy session for all of us in here, but I think it's a good topic to have, and I don't think it happens enough. There's a lot. I think that's the biggest thing why we started doing work on here and working on this stuff, so we can all feel like we're all kind of like, I think we all chose a really scary career because we're all passionate about it and we really love it. But it's hard, and it's very exhausting. It's very mentally exhausting. And I think a lot of like non-artists don't kind of know how exhausting it is sometimes. I've talked to some, especially because I'm older now, so I talk to like a lot of other parents, and because my kid, I talk to their parents. They don't know anything about like artists or art careers, and people in my chat usually know this. I remember I was explaining it to it's almost like our kids were playing on the playground or something. Some of the dads were talking about what we're doing for work, and I never know how to explain what I do for work or a living. And we're just gonna put some like kind of rock shapes down here, give it a little ground plane to hang out on. And usually I say like, oh, I do like concept, or I say previs. For some reason I think saying previs is gonna be explain to them better. And I was like, how do I tell someone what I do? Like, I paint pictures for like games and movies that are in production, so they know what to make. It's like maybe that's like the worst description. And legit had someone come to me and they asked us, and they're like, so did someone just give you like a drawing and you just like color it in? I was like, I'm going home now. I was like, I don't even know what to say to this anymore. It's like, yeah, our life, it's just like a coloring book. We just live like this coloring book life. Like you know what? I was actually envious of it. It's like, I wish we could get by. If someone's like, they give you a drawing and be like, I think we'll make the pants blue. They're like, let's call it done, Dave. Well done. You've done it again. I was like, thank you. All right, I'm going to go home. Let's do it. Our lives would be a lot simpler. Do we make the pants green or blue today? Oh, another coffee break. Another coffee break on the agenda. Our paint bucket tool tech. Mikey, good to see you, by the way. But I'm sorry, we're getting a little distracted here. Well, yeah, I think we can talk about some things before too when it comes to doing concept. Although I do love these discussions. I love talking about this stuff. I did kind of, so we talked about this in the beginning, so we probably had a lot of people that came in here after. So I was a concept artist for about 16 years. It was actually, I'm coming up on my 1 year anniversary where I did kind of step out of the industry. And so I do freelance now. Most of my freelance do work for Blizzard, mostly on Hearthstone or for Magic the Gathering. I do take on some other projects sometimes. But most of the work I do now is more kind of illustrative. But I do get a lot of companies kind of hit me up for concept work. But that stuff gets buried behind the scenes, and who knows when it ever gets released. So that's where I am now. I was lucky. I did get a job at EA straight out of school. I graduated in 2004, which is a long time ago now. And my first job in the industry was actually as a texture artist. And at the time, you could just be like an illustrator. I was an illustration major. And I didn't have to really know 3D or anything to get into being a texture artist. Because at the time, I just had to paint like a 128 by 128 bitmap, give it, slap it on a model, and you call it done. But I think the biggest thing is, and for anyone that's looking to get into the industry, and like I said, we're tackling a whole bunch of subjects today, is that definitely look at the entire industry. A lot of people hit me up for portfolios or portfolio advice about getting into a studio, and it's mostly like, I really want to work for Riot or, Naughty Dog, Blizzard, all this stuff, right? Great, solid studios to work for, and you'll work on some really cool projects, but they also are the most competitive studios to work for. And the best thing that you can do to get into the industry is just getting your foot in the door at any studio. And some of these smaller, like indie studios, are phenomenal. And there's a lot of pros and cons about both. But I think actually working at small studios is actually amazing. You're really going to feel like you have a lot more of an important voice at a smaller studio. And when it comes to applying to other studios, experience is, most of the time, experience is experience. And you can say like, oh, you've done 5 years at this, smaller studio doing this. I mean, that's just as amazing as any other studio. I mean, I didn't use Substance. I mean, Substance wasn't around when I was doing it. So it's really the hardest part about getting into games is really just getting your foot in the door. And there's just so many awesome studios these days and smaller studios. I would always hit them up because the amount of portfolios they get is so much less. Yo, Marina the Blend, that's fantastic. Yeah, I think it's great because there's so many things that like happen at smaller studios where like I was concept an idea like this, right? And we're kind of rearing off the description. I go to the designer's like, oh, what do you think about this? And then we could do this thing. And, it's a small team. It's like, there might be like a few designers and like 5 modelers or something. And they'd be like, yeah, let's try it out. Let's go crazy. We can do whatever we want. And so you have a lot more of that, and I didn't mind working at EA, but it's definitely a large moving machine, right? Where there's a lot of managers and producers and you're on these deadlines and they're like, I don't know, I don't make these decisions. You just have to get these assets done. Right. But then there's larger studios can have different perks too. EA had a cereal bar, which was actually pretty awesome. And the cereal bar works. I had friends that I think worked at the studio longer than I had planned because they quote unquote said, I really like not having to think about or paying for breakfast. I'm like, okay, I guess that's fair. Okay, so let's try to get back focused on this piece here. Sorry, I can get very sidetracked. I'm usually half decent at drawing and painting and talking at the same time, but chat can attest I can probably get pretty derailed. Oh, also real quick, before we forget, if you use !WACOM, they are doing a giveaway on their website for, I think, 3 Wacom 1s. I think that should give you a link if you put that in there. The stream is sponsored by them, by the way. They are awesome. They sponsor my YouTube content. Legitimately one of the best companies I've had the pleasure to be involved with and work for. They are actually phenomenal. Is it for the USA? I actually don't know the details, so I would definitely, it is only in the US, so I'm sorry to hear that. But it is for anyone that's, Jackie got it anyway. So they did give me that link to send out. Okay, so we're gonna skip a couple steps. So we could spend a little bit more time and figure this out, but let's put in some quick value to this. So let me move my layers over so you can see them. We're running out of painting real estate rapidly here. So I have this layer right here as my line layer. Here's my lines. It's very fancy. And so, do I have anything on back here? Nothing. Okay. I'm just gonna go in with like a solid brush. Just reset these. And I'm just going to, we're gonna stay black and white for now. Just so we can kind of, so I can read this a little bit better, right? And let's just kind of jam in all this value underneath the sketch so we can kind of see what we're working with here. And I love this part of the year with Lightbox and everything. I cannot wait though to see everybody when Lightbox is back in person. I will absolutely be at the next one in person. Here, I'm gonna take away the prompt at the top. I'm trying to like just clear up space so everyone can see what's going on here. Yeah, so we were tabling at the Lightbox for last, the one that got canceled last year. And so we'll have to see kind of what happens after. I don't know if we'll be tabling or presenting or what, right? And so like I'm still staying pretty quick and loose. I don't want, I don't mind if some things kind of break out. I'm still thinking about this idea of silhouette that we even started with before, right? On what could happen with this piece. We haven't thought about these little creature dudes at the bottom either, but we can figure them out later. The online option is really nice too, right? It is. And I think I've heard them talk about kind of how nice it's been that so many people from around the world can kind of be a part of it now. Because it's tough. Going to conventions and everything is difficult. It's expensive between travel expenses and where to stay, all that. I'm really looking forward to getting out, going to cons again and everything. Are there pros and cons versus more refining? I like to do, I'll go back into another refining stage. What's up, Jay? Yeah, conventions are rough, that's true. Yeah, I think what I really miss about the in-person, and I love being able to, like, you do kind of have front row seats instead of like you're sitting in the back of some auditorium, right? Is that I do like having that face-to-face. I like meeting people. I feel like that inspiration that you get when you're surrounded by the artists in person, when I walk away from that, I feel like it gives me such a massive kind of artistic high, if that makes sense, like that energy. I feel like it fuels me for like 2 months after. I want to get home. I want to draw. I want to paint. I'm so happy about art and career and creating art for a living, and that it's Like, and that is like, I feel, just kind of feel that emptiness of not having that right now. So I'm so appreciative of everybody hanging out in chat today, to even for us all to kind of offer something like that. Yeah, absolutely. And so there's no pros and cons. I like to do this so I can read it a little bit better, but then I'll go back in and do some more kind of refining. So right now, just, I can kind of show you what I'm doing. I just kind of control, click the layer, and we'll hide the marching ants, right? And maybe I'll just kind of gradient it a little bit, just to give it a little something so it's not super flat. Maybe we're not super thinking of like shadow shapes or anything yet. I also think our head's popping out of our shoulder, but we won't discuss that. These are easy things to move. And like this is, it can get a little airbrushy. We're just kind of, if we weren't talking and kind of doing this, we'd be moving pretty quick right now, right? Figuring out kind of what we want to do. Maybe she has got like a long shadow shape on her here. I'm not sure. Maybe most of her face hangs out in shadow. I don't know. I don't know if it's important to work in values. Like I've worked with so many artists that had like different workflows, right? I used to spend a lot of time in black and white. I think there's a good thing about black and white, and that is if you want to really kind of go back and focus on values. At one point, I was hopping the color really fast in my work, and I noticed that my values were starting to get worse over time. I would take my piece into black and white at the end and notice the values were like not great. And so I decided to let's spend a little bit more time in black and white at the beginning so I can actually figure out values and how I want them to work and where it works well. So I usually lately do pop into color pretty fast, but I kind of have the same idea of kind of where I want values to be. And sometimes at this stage it's fine concept-wise to be in this black and white because I might still be throwing ideas off to the designer, and he or she might not be super concerned with the color of it right now and more of actually the design, and I can work faster. It's like we can always just take this and move stuff around too, right? We can just copy all this on a new layer. I don't mind these pieces being super messy. I think the mess is kind of a cool thing, especially on pieces that are this organic and wild. Calibra, that's a good question. How much 3D do you need to know? You don't need to know any 3D. I will say though, knowing 3D probably can only be beneficial for your work though. A lot of awesome concept artists do incorporate 3D, especially if you can know some at least base level 3D. It can help you a lot if you have to do some environment pieces. You can even block it out, and that can solve so many perspective issues for you. It's just another tool in your arsenal. And like I said, it's not gonna hurt. It's definitely it will make you look better on a resume, or if they can see that you're using all these different tools, so it does help. I always say that maybe you might get pulled into crunch later. Sometimes concept artists, we kind of avoid a lot of crunch because a lot of our crunch load is up front. And during the project, we have to stay paces ahead of the rest of the team. And so you might be working furiously at the beginning of the project, but when the rest of the team is kind of scrambling for alpha or beta stuff, you might actually be on another project already for the concept team. And so you might get the side eye from the rest of the team when you get to leave on time. But that's because the concept team is the best. Okay, so one thing we could do, let's see here. We could almost kind of do the same thing we were doing before. You don't want to go crazy with the lighting and dramatic lighting and everything, but it's nice sometimes to kind of pick away a little bit. I'm trying to, at least for this demo, be able to see. So I have to figure out some of these shapes on what they are, what they could be. And it's just kind of some slight rendering on top. And we're still just we'll just kind of do this in black and white for now. And maybe we had more of this kind of hair in front. You know, you just always can make this on like a new layer. But I feel like I spend a good amount of this time in this kind of like exploration phase. You know, once we do a piece later, say if like this is totally approved and we have to do a piece for the modeling team, then we'll have to get really specific and we're really gonna have to dive in and figure out how this works and how this is all shaped, right? How do you recommend getting better at the idea phase? I think a lot of those big ideas are gonna come at the beginning, like staying loose, trying to riff off ideas that you might have already had. You know what I mean? And then maybe those ideas will feed into new ideas, if that makes sense. Like maybe some of these loose shapes, try to follow the path of what those shapes are doing. Like I'm not super sure, maybe some of these shapes, these like kind of root things could be a formation of like what maybe this top hair had looked like, right? And we're just following that kind of craziness and see where it goes. Yeah, I feel like, you know, try to get inspired. Always, you know, I'm always just, there's so many amazing artists out there posting work. What amazing things are they coming up with? You know, and this is, like I said, this is something just to get us started. This is just part of the process that I like to do when it comes to creating concept work. There's a whole bunch of different things you can dive into, like when it comes to rendering, or I would say, you know, how you present your work. Oh, actually, I think this is a pretty good thing to talk about too. Do you study anatomy? Anatomy is massively important. Massively important. If you can find like figure drawing or gesture drawing and that stuff, anatomy is so important. It's one of the true fundamentals of creating your work, right? And one of the biggest things that might have your portfolio not, you know, be approved or get you into an interview process is like, you know, lack of anatomical knowledge, right? It's so important. It's what everyone sees first if they're looking at work and something's standing out to them. And then, you know, you can get to a point where you can really start messing with anatomy, but you should know the rules of anatomy first. And, you know, I have such a long way to go when it comes to anatomy. You know, all the old masters felt like they said it'd take a lifetime for them to even get into anatomy as much as they wanted. So I think that's something important. I can't wait to go back to like having real figure drawing. I don't feel like anatomy for me is like riding a bike. I feel like if I'm not practicing or studying it, it kind of fades away, right? So there are some really cool online places to do like figure drawing. There are courses that suggest to people that just starting to learn how to draw. There's so many great options now. You have like, you know, Schoolism, or, you know, there's actually some solid tutorial stuff on YouTube. We have a lot of great artists here on Twitch. You know, I try to draw on Twitch as much as I can, answer questions, all that stuff. Lines of action is good, absolutely. I do have some like tutorials on YouTube. But there's a lot of available resources these days, which is really, really amazing. And this will be fun too when we get into like, we're kind of skipping ahead, but when we really kind of dig into like what these kind of wood grain shapes are going to be and kind of how this is lit, I think is pretty cool. I think one thing like that I'm thinking about when we're doing this face right now is that the face in the end could be like way creepier, right? And so I kind of give myself like little notes when I go back and we kind of re-edit things, what we could do. But that's something we could also do later. Say the art director, for example, came over, or the designer, be like, "Oh, I like the pose. I like where we're going. Face not really doing it for me. I want to go like really horrific," or maybe I was like, "All right, let's take this. Let's dupe this over like 5 times, and let's just do like 6 different faces on it, right?" And sometimes it's different. Sometimes, like, I've been on a team where we spent 6 months on a character. They're like, this is one of the main characters in the game. We've got to nail this character. And then, you know, you have to learn patience with that too. Sometimes, I think patience is a good trait for concept artists too. I've worked with some concept artists that have very little patience, and they're hard to work with. And you know, the industry is pretty small and people talk and everything. So just be able to kind of roll with the punches. Sometimes you might have an art director or creative director and they have something in their head and they don't know what it is. And you don't know what it is. But they know that what you're doing is not it. And so sometimes you're just going to have to go through the ringer. Greens from Edinburgh. Well, welcome on in. I'm sure other people can attest to it. They're like, I don't know what I want, but that's not it. That's not it. Keep going. See what? Keep jamming. You're like, huh, I am jammed out right now. I have been jamming for a week. I'm exhausted. They all look the same. All right, let's put these little beastie creatures down here. And then we actually have time. We're going for another 40 minutes. We can actually try to get some color on this. We're trying to go as fast as possible. Oh, BC, absolutely. Let me put the this back up here. You guys are totally able to do some cool stuff. I have a Lightbox section on the Discord. People can throw some sketches in or some cool ideas using this prompt. I think that'd be awesome. We did forget about the hammer. We did forget about the hammer. See, this is as real to a concept art experience as I can give, because there's actually been plenty of times where the designer came over and would be like, so where's the hammer? I'd be like, oh yeah, there's a hammer in there, wasn't there? Come back in like 30 minutes. I'm just trying to give you guys the real experience, okay? I feel like she's got kind of like a Medusa head. I think I would try completely different tops too. So let's do this actually. Let's do this. Manage canvas size. I think this is a cool thing for us to do. Let's do this. Let's make this canvas bigger. I'm gonna get rid of the prompt again so we got more room. Oh, there's crying involved, but usually you do that on your coffee breaks or something. And let's dupe the whole thing over. And so I'll do this in phases too. So we have this, we'll make another one. Cause like it feels like we're getting closer, but maybe we're not totally there. I know we're kind of making a mess of this thing, but okay. And this will happen a lot in stages too, right? It's like, all right, we're 10% closer to what our art director is happy with at this stage. 10%. Sorry, it's a brush bonanza here. I've been using these Greco brushes like crazy. Stephen Preston, that's a great point. I always say try not to get married to like any of your work that you're doing. Be ready, like have fun with it, but don't get so attached to it that they might be like, you know what? Or actually, you spent like 3 days on it. And you felt like you put a lot into it. They might be like, we actually think we're just gonna do like a water creature, like on a waterfall. You're like, all right, well, this is over, you know, or something like that could happen. I'm just gonna totally erase this. Yeah, that could totally happen. Maybe we could try some different things, these kind of same curves, if there was something off the top. We're kind of going back to that loose stage, And we're still figuring out kind of what we want as far as silhouette goes. But we're using that kind of same base we had before. Yeah, it's true. They're like, thank God I didn't spend any time on the hammer. Dude, I've legit had that happen where there was a part where I was like, oh, I'll get to that last. I really don't want to work. Like, that part's weird. I don't know if it's going to really work. And I was like, maybe they'll forget about it. And, or like some part of it will get like axed or something and they just don't even, they can the whole concept and like, whew, good thing I didn't do it. It's probably not like, you know, useful advice, but it has happened. Yeah, I think we go less face. Or maybe there was like, I wonder if like there's an idea you could have like just a socket hole, you know, on one. It's just kind of like you weren't sure if this thing's alive or not. Oh, your concept sign with no face? I mean, I like the no face idea actually. Oh, clever. I like that. Yeah, there could be animals that burrowed into the head. Like if we don't do that one, you could go straight like hole right here, right? And there could be like this little animation that you see like a mouse or something crawl out of it. Just a mouth. Yeah, we could do like do a ton of variations. Like that's always a fun part of the project where you can kind of go in, be like, all right, let's just get some crazy heads and faces. Let's just jam what would be. You know, you could use like different kind of variety of brushes. You know, you could do, might be kind of like leaves and stuff up here. If you guys want, I could, and I think it'd be pretty cool for you guys to see the kind of half of this. I could take this to a final painting. And we could do the recording of that, and we'll put that up on YouTube also. So you have to see how this entire piece started and us hanging out and going from it, right? And then end up with what will be a final. What is Marlo doing? Oh my gosh, there's a squirrel up there. If this cat jumps. Hold a second. We do need to show what is. Actually, hold a second. It is full cam here. Marlo is. This cat jumps and takes out everything on the wall. There's a squirrel in that window. All right, I think he's okay. I think he's all right. I was like, please, cat, not now. I can't. But yeah, we could do a lot of stuff. Like maybe we could get more curved with some of this hair. But this is a fun stage. But I think it's good to have in any concept art portfolio to show, you know, this part of creative process. You can show, you know, you obviously can have like nicely rendered stuff too, because, you know, a well presented portfolio is super important. And there's been a lot of awesome portfolio stuff you can check out on Lightbox this weekend as well. I don't do any mentorships right now. It's definitely something I'm looking to do later. My biggest thing, I have to stop kind of taking on so much work. It's like been dominating my entire schedule, so that can make it a little tough. But it's definitely something I hope to do in the future. So right now, the most I can do is kind of, you know, we hang out, kind of share my process, and But I would love to. I know a lot of people have asked about mentorships in the past. And we are just kind of, yeah. So we have about half an hour left. If anyone like has more questions or things we want to talk about, feel free. So we're just kind of throwing it in here. I know I re-enabled it in Discord lately. Now people can spy on me. One frame, yeah, usually. Like I might already be at the stage where I might start throwing color on. It just depends. So this could be like a couple hours of work. I don't mind. But if I'm on a normal schedule for games, it's usually, in my experience, has been around 2 days for an entire character concept, from starting it to shelving it off, which is pretty tight, so I have to keep good pace. Let me try to catch up. Oh, we got way more questions than I thought. Let me see here. And sorry if I missed so many people saying hi today. It's been tough trying to stay semi-focused, and you guys have been awesome in chat. What would you recommend someone trying to study concept art without a traditional college focus to make sure they're getting the right skills? That's a good question too, and that's something we could talk about if you wanted to talk about. Is the idea of kind of like art education, right? I'm just thinking about a lot of questions I probably get the most, and it's a lot of the biggest, it's maybe go off of concept art, but a lot of people are like, is art school worth it, right? Now, I think that's a really big one. And so, like, the biggest thing off the bat is, you do not need that piece of paper to get a job in the industry. It's all about your portfolio and, who you are, as well as, definitely a big part of it. But the biggest question is, how do I get my portfolio up to where it needs to be? And that answer is different for everybody. Like for me personally, I needed that kind of like art school kind of situation and education. I needed to kind of move across the country. Everyone's got like different kind of life experiences where they are. And it was able for me to kind of like start over. And I was introduced to things that I never knew existed. I was shown, inspiration that I would never probably found on my own. I had my own distractions on different parts of the country. And so that's... So for me, and then part of it is who I met there, and the contacts that you make and the relationships and friendships that you form are really important. But at the same time, there are a ton of options available to people now. Like, I'd be lying if I was saying like the things that are available now weren't available when I was that age. And I think if you have the drive, is you can do it without it, right? There's so many different ways of like, talking to artists, like, doing what you're doing right now with Lightbox is probably like more than what most artists are doing, right? Making contacts, asking questions, concentration of working on your own portfolio. You have like, you have things like, schoolism or these different classes you can take, mentorships, YouTube, you might have to kind of like dive through and dig through a whole bunch because, a lot on there, but it's a lot of options. So it's just, that's different for every single person. Networking is important. Networking is definitely important. Making really good impression with other artists is important as well. I've been at studios where I've had 2 portfolios come in. One might have been technically like better, but someone was also like, I've worked with this other person, they are amazing, they take feedback really well, they're super awesome to be around, then that's the person, so those contacts and being, having that kind of nice working relationship is so important, because I'd rather take anyone any day if they're way better and friendlier to work with than someone that might have a technically better portfolio that's not great to work with, and the decision's easy. Okay. You're a professional concept artist and you didn't go to art school. It's not easy, but it's definitely possible. Yeah, absolutely. I think, and this is one thing too, I think art school can present you with more doors, but it's still up to you going to that school to be able to walk through those doors. Because I went to school with tons of people that did the very bare minimum and didn't get a career at art. It's still, no matter what you do, it's gonna be like what you are bringing to the table and how hard you're willing to work. Those doors will still be there, even if you don't go to school and just put in the work to open them up. Okay. Red flags regarding studios. That's tough. I think the studio in the industry life is getting better. I think there's been a lot of craziness in studios in the past 20 years. And I was at EA during like the EA spouse situation and settlement and all that stuff. And it's crazy. Studios has a lot of growing up to do still. I think it is getting better. Sometimes you can look. Sometimes studios used to be a lot worse as far as like crunch and that type of like that crunch lifestyle. I think game studios used to be really big on you should be happy you're working in games. So you're working 70 hours this week. You should everyone wants your job, so work a lot. I think that is fading. Let me see. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything else in question. Is it worth it to buy Photoshop? We do some stuff on Krita. If you're totally happy with Krita, other pieces of software work amazingly well. I've used Photoshop for just so long. I just have a solid workflow. And I've used Clip Studio a couple times, but every time I go to something else, I feel like I'm just working slower, so I just go back to Photoshop. So Vic Lores, where can I send a portfolio and doesn't get asked for 3 years of experience? I would send portfolios to those places anyways. I swear a lot of those places that put those in, if you have a solid portfolio, you're gonna get an interview regardless. You know what I mean? I think sometimes they throw it in there to like cover bases, but if you have like a portfolio that looks awesome and it fits what they're looking for, I think they'll still give you an interview. And then if you're like, really good at having an interview, then sometimes, a lot of times, interviews, if you get an interview, in my experience, it's really just, you're like, it's almost like you have the job, you just want to see if you're a good fit for the team, right? For any artist without an art degree, a networking visa, I don't know. You probably don't. The degree thing still relates how it was before, and most studios will, that I've been at, will cover visas if they want to hire you. Thank you for all the subs today. Also, by the way, sorry we do have alerts off just for this stream, but thank you so much. You guys are amazing, even for hanging out, even if you're just hanging out today. Really amazing. Is it worth learning traditional media over digital? Yeah, absolutely. You can just stay digital if you want. You don't have to mess with traditional if you don't want. Most of when I was in school, I loved working in oil. I did a lot of oil painting before I did a major swap over to digital for my career. I think when I do paintings, I take a lot of knowledge from kind of how I build a painting up is based off how I used to paint in oil. But a lot of the same lessons like apply when you're creating a painting when it comes to like composition or lighting or everything. It's all those same lessons still apply. Digital is just a different tool. If you went from like oil paint using gouache to, everything, it's learning the medium, right? So you're gonna learn the tool, Photoshop, and how to make it work. How many pieces should you have in your portfolio? So I don't know if my knowledge on portfolio is a little dated. So I used to be really big on the idea of like 15 to 20 pieces for portfolio. And back in school, we used to very much talk about, we were handing in like physical portfolios, and how you ordered your portfolio was a big part of it. Like, you don't start with your strongest piece. You start with like, say if it was a 0% to 100%, you start with like, 70, 80% piece, and then you have them flip through, and then maybe like 6 pieces in, you hit them with like another one of your really solid pieces, and then you can kind of lull with your work a little bit, and then the last page you get them with your best piece. And then like there is definitely this idea that like, and like that's gonna leave the last impression on them. You don't want to like pit her out. They don't want to like be flipping through and be like, all right, well, it's getting less strong. So I don't know. I think the biggest thing for now though, I think you don't want like 40 pieces in there, because let's be honest, it's gonna be really hard to have 40 amazing pieces of work. I think I would personally would like to see around 15 to 20 pieces. Just remember that a lot of the time you are going to be judged on your worst piece in your portfolio, and a studio wants, what they're trying to make decisions on is consistency, right? So they want to be sure, if we hire this artist, can we get them into our schedule in the pipeline, and they'll be able to produce work on a consistent basis without like a lot of hiccups. So always assume you'll probably need some catch up time, right? But they want to make sure that you're just able to kind of flow and get into the entire pipeline of the project. So sometimes if they see a couple in there, it may kind of like be like, ooh, wow, oh man, that one, is that from the same artist? And I say this because we haven't been doing as much portfolio reviews. We used to do quite a bit of portfolio reviews here on the stream, and sometimes you get a lot of pieces in there. I'll even bring it up. I'm like, is this like a really old piece? Because it seems like it seems like it compared to the rest of the work. And a lot of people always say, oh yeah, that's from like 6 years ago. Just ignore that piece. If you have to say that, remove that piece immediately. If you have to make an excuse for a piece in your portfolio, it should not be in there. No, it is absolutely not necessary for a degree to enter the industry. I would say less than 1% of studios require a degree, and sometimes they do it for like weird financial reasons. But no, it's all about like your knowledge, your portfolio, who you are. Sometimes it takes an art degree for that kind of push to get your portfolio there. Sometimes it doesn't, so that's super important. Oh, so that's actually a good question too. Portfolio of a single scene in 16 different styles. And this is going to depend on the studio. So if you are, some studios, you're going to have to make a more specific portfolio depending on what studio you want to work for. I know it's a lot. It seems like a crazy amount. I hope you guys don't mind. We're kind of having more kind of like a free form talk right now instead of painting as much. So I can get this mic a little bit closer. So basically, for certain studios, if you want to work at Riot, you're gonna have to have a portfolio that looks like Riot work. They just have such a massive amount of portfolios coming in. They can be a lot pickier. They don't want to have to do that interpretation from, well, they're a really solid artist, but they're doing this really hyper realistic, type of work. Our work doesn't really look like that. If you want to work for Blizzard, your portfolio should look like a Blizzard portfolio. If you want to work on Call of Duty, if you want to work, any of those places, you're not going to want a really stylized portfolio that might look like, say, like Joe Mad's work, right? And that would be a sick portfolio to have. But then if you're applying to, a place that's, they're Sledgehammer and they're working on Call of Duty, they're gonna be like, this work's awesome, but we don't do that work here. So sometimes you're gonna have to tailor your portfolio for a studio, or a lot of studios you can just send in a bunch of work and they might be working on a whole bunch of projects and you might be a great fit. So it's a little tougher for those really, really big studios that just have that type of attention and they're just getting tons of portfolios in, and so they're gonna be pickier, and so you might kind of have to hit them with it, Ooh, okay. A couple good questions. Thoughts on art tests. Most studios are not doing as many art tests anymore. I think art tests are kind of bogus. So some studios were getting into trouble because they kind of opened themselves up for lawsuit territory. Say they gave you an art test, right? You did some work for them, and they're like, okay, great. Usually a studio will make up a project, but what if a part of that design influenced something that they did and put it in game? That can leave them into kind of like these weird legal areas where, like, did they just get work for free from you and now they're putting it in the game? So I've seen a lot of studios kind of back away from it. If you ask me, I think a proper art director or someone recruiting should be able to look at a portfolio and be like, they will be able to handle the work that we're doing. You know, I can see what they're doing. You know, I think, I honestly, I think art tests are for studios or people in there that cannot interpret it well. But I think that's something that they should be able to do. Because it's a lot of work. I used to have to do art tests like crazy. I've done so many art tests, and like, I give you guys this one example, and I can't believe this. This was, I'm gonna leave like no studio names or like the names in. We wanted this one concept artist, and he was amazing. I couldn't believe he was on the market. He had just left some other big studio. I got in touch with him. I was like, and for some reason, my current studio was like huge. It was a long time. It was like 8-9 years ago. It was huge onto doing art tests still, and I was like, oh, God, I know artists are getting like really against art tests recently. And he's like, I'm super busy. I'm applying to lots of studios. I really don't have time for art tests right now. And I was like, totally understandable. I'm sorry. We do. It's just a requirement. We have to do an art test right now. And like, I'm super sorry. And he was like, you know what? It's okay. I guess I understand. I was like, trust me, you know, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. Just do the test. This person put the work in, did the test. It was unbelievable test. We went to the producers and stuff, and I was like, yeah, well, we're definitely gonna hire this piece. I don't know why we made him do the test. And then someone at recruiting was like, oh, we actually like X that job out. We're not hiring for that position anymore. I was like, cool. So you guys basically just lost this artist. He's never going to apply here ever again after I just tell him this. I couldn't believe it. I was like devastated. Like, I convinced this person to do a take-home test because I'm like, you're shooing. You're gonna get the job. Just do the test, and I know you've been wanting to kind of work here with us. I couldn't believe it. I mean, Steve. I mean, yeah. I was like, this person deserves to hate us after this. I was angry at my own studio for that one. That was. I mean, pretty much what Steve said. That's what the email back said. That's not really much of insight, but it was. So I would say most studios, I kind of have been doing a lot less take-home tests because I feel like they lead into bad situations like that. You should be able to tell, if you ask me. Let me go back to some of the questions. Dan, about someone contacted about portfolio. Last message was sent. Yeah, some places just take longer. Sometimes it's not their fault. Sometimes you have like weird paperwork where they're like, we're talking to this other person. Let's just see. We can't get back to this other person in time. I know it feels, and this is actually something, maybe this will help someone as far as their own portfolio goes, is that sometimes it's not always about your own portfolio. This is a hard thing to even convince yourself of, and it's hard for me to come to grips with. Sometimes like your portfolio and your work may absolutely be good enough and solid enough, but maybe just in that exact weird timing and situation, one other person just happened to be like a little bit more of a fit, or they knew someone on the team, or who knows what. It's really easy to get down on yourself after you get like a rejection or don't hear back. Try to stick through it. Like, took me like 5 years to hear back from Wizards of the Coast. a very long time, and every time I sent my portfolio, it felt like I got kicked in the stomach. It was very, very difficult. But sometimes, and maybe sometimes you have to convince yourself, like, yeah, there was just someone else that was just, But, you pick yourself up, you got to dust yourself off, and you have to keep kind of going on it, right? Because I think when we put that work in and we keep trying to push our work, we can get there. Oh, Marcus. Yeah, my wife has to do that sometimes. Yeah, Corsairs reject me more times than I can count, Cold Wi-Fi. Absolutely, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it would be great if we could actually take this piece into a color. We could do this on stream. We probably won't be part of Lightbox, but maybe next week we can take this piece, do a full render of this, and we'll get it up on YouTube so people can kind of see this, and then we'll kind of see where it ends, Sci-fi, absolutely. What exercises do I do as far as like art goes? I mean, I try to work out the back porch, but I usually have so much work to do. I kind of just have to dive into the work. Yeah, I love having these conversations. And I know for me personally, before I started working professionally at all, that I loved hearing any type of insights into an industry. I would just sit back and, we'd have like speakers come and talk about what they were doing at a certain studio. And I loved it. It just made me want to paint more and draw more. And so, yeah, absolutely. This has been a pleasure to at least show this beginning process. Like I said, 2 hours, 2 hours is not a lot of time. But this also shows where we can take these next stages of where we had kind of like this first tier, and we can take it and bring it into going into kind of more head studies. And maybe we can change variations on what's happening on top of the head. Yeah, absolutely. Like I love this, and I think honestly, anything that can help anyone, even if it's just a little bit. This doesn't, the way why I approach my work and how I treat it is different than a lot of other artists do. But I think if we can just take a couple little steps of what someone does here, someone does there, bring it into our own work, it's huge. Hey, we gotta draw like some of these little mushroom people down here. Yeah, guys, feel free, and there's tons of follows been happening today. Thank you so much for all the follows, hanging out. Try to paint on here as much as we can. I want them to have like these little they're like these little sad mushroom people. I'm very excited for the rest of Lightbox this weekend. Really fantastic. Like I said, I know they're planning on having it in person next year. I can't wait to see and meet everybody next year as well. If it's in person, I will 100% be there. Absolutely. And like, if you catch me on stream next time, hit me up with any of the same questions. We had a lot of people that streamed for Lightbox last year, and on Twitch. A lot of them didn't come back onto Twitch, and I always wish I saw them on more. But it's tough. I understand. I guess this gets super busy. It's hard to juggle it sometimes. Yeah, Manuel, absolutely. And I still feel that way. I see other artists working still. They're professional. I was like, they just sit down, they crank out the most insane work I've ever seen in my life. It's nonstop. I mess up a lot, so hopefully everyone gets to see a lot of those mistakes. And I'm making it work. I have a lot of room to grow for my own art, and but I can share the mistakes. And people, we have a lot of people here in chat that are here a lot, and they see that I have some darker days where I'm like, this stuff's not working. I feel stuck. And we all push and help each other through it, and really I think this is another outlet for our community. I think Twitch is a tough place for art sometimes. We're definitely shadowed by it's more of a gaming and hot tub platform. So we try to do what we can with the art section that lives underneath. Fantastic hot tub streaming, I guess. Yeah. I think we'll definitely I'd love to continue this character off stream. We're actually going to be diving into on stream next week. We're going to be diving into, yeah, they said I could actually, you know, maybe we'll do some painting. I'll get a hot tub and we'll put a Cintiq in a hot tub and I'll try not to electrocute myself. We're actually going to be doing a little bit of storyboarding next week. We have a whole thing for people that hit 9 months. And I want to start diving into After Effects. I actually don't know After Effects very well. And so we're going to try to teach ourselves After Effects on stream. So if people want to hang out for that too. So we're going to do some storyboarding. We're going to be doing, I want to kind of break out pieces and do some animation on my own work. Since I do kind of like a lot of splash screens for other streamers. And if we can kind of figure that out on our own. I've not been talking that long. I'm already losing my voice. Oh, really, Miss Mossa. That's awesome. Hey, Pacific, by the way, it's awesome to see you again. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, so we're going to get into some animations. We're going to be doing a whole bunch. We're going to be doing storyboarding. It's going to be really, really fun. And it's a really great place to hang out for any art questions. So I like to keep this going past all, you know, Lightbox and everything. So it's really awesome to see a bunch of new faces that popped in here. Yeah, this coffee's not has not been hydrating me. I did leave my water in the kitchen. That's right. We only got like a few more, then I can dive into the kitchen. Gamma Feathers, thank you so much for hanging out as well today. You guys have been awesome. Yeah, but I think we'll definitely finish this piece up as well. Kayla, really awesome to see you. Really awesome artists. We have had a ton of awesome artists hanging out with us in chat today. Gamma Feathers, Kayla Sketch. Like there's tons. Mikey, amazing. Thank you. Yeah, I can't wait to just hang out. So I don't know if we're gonna be doing if we're gonna be tabling, or maybe there's more in the future. I know WACOM's been wanting to do a whole bunch of stuff. WACOM's been super awesome. Definitely, you guys, you can check out their giveaway again. ! WACOM. It took me a long time to pronounce it WACOM and not WACOM. I spent like 15 years saying WACOM. I was informed like a year ago that it is WACOM. It's WACOM. It's like Socom. They said it's like Socom, WACOM. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Like I said, I hope this was informative and got you a little bit inspired, and enjoy absolutely the rest of Lightbox. I thought it was a good step from like initial sketch into this, and kind of the process and conversations that you might have. Like I said, like a lot of these pieces as part of doing concept, you might not actually take this up to color. It totally depends. It could be like, they'd be like, all right, that's enough. We just wanted some ideas. We have a ton of ideas we need to get down. Maybe just some black and whites. Maybe you can draw some like ogre beasts next. You know, you don't need to spend 3 days coloring this and rendering it up to a polished pass. You know, maybe later if it gets approved, but you know, and trust me, you learn how to like do them faster and kind of what sells the idea. Oh, again, real quick. I meant to say this like 10 times on stream. I always have this idea, and I feel I've told other concept artists this too, and I feel like sometimes they don't do this and they pay for it. And it's this idea of what ABC or what always be sell or always be closing, right? I've definitely worked with different art directors or creative directors that sometimes weren't sure what they wanted. Sell them your idea. Don't give them a bunch of questions that they may have to solve on their own later. If you're really into an idea, punch up this part that make it seem awesome and sell them on it. You know, one thing I've seen a lot of artists do, and they might leave the spot kind of really ambiguous, and they'd be like, I think I'm gonna do something like over here maybe, and then AD or someone may go off on some weird, they're like, what, I don't know, and then they get lost in it. And I was like, maybe like closing those little kind of like those little ends and really kind of sell this so you can move on to the next thing, you know. And I don't know, that has like worked really well with me for me in the past. And you can get into some weird spots if you leave a lot of questions. So try to think of something and seal it up. Yes, guys, thank you so much. If you missed the stream today, this entire stream is going to be on YouTube. So hello, YouTube, if you're watching out here. And yeah, that's it. We're gonna put the whole VOD up, and we'll be back streaming next week. Thank you guys so much. I don't know. Have they? Am I still on the live section on Lightbox? I'm not sure what is happening over there. And hello, YouTube. Yeah, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. You guys are seriously amazing. Let me just see. I'm not sure what the etiquette is. do we raid somebody else that is doing something for Lightbox right now? Because we're probably gonna shut the stream down. I have to get dinner and everything. So thank you so much. Let me see what is happening here. Give another Lightbox. Is Ross still going? I think there's a couple going for. They're still on. All right, let's give them some love. I'm sure you guys are probably gonna go over and check them out anyway. Ross is still on.
One is Lico.
As you just heard. Okay, let's give Ross some love. They're doing some pretty awesome stuff. Both of them are amazing. Espan, or is it Espan? Or, yeah, it's probably Espan. All right. Oh, Bryn Metheny starting too. Oh, there's too many. There's too many awesome. So let me do a peek on the art category. Otherwise, we're gonna do we're gonna hit up Ross. Because I think they're doing some pretty fun stuff on Ross's. All right, we'll hit up Ross. This seems cool over there. Raid this. You get Brennan? Let me see. Oh, you guys are like, I'm gonna throw me all over the place here. Where is Bryn's? Science Star, should we go over to should we head back over to Ross? I'm trying to see anyone else that is doing stuff for Lightbox right now. I want to give some more Lightbox love. It's like a Lightbox party this weekend, so we're gonna keep that going. What's Bryn working on? Or what's Bryn doing? Can you PM me? Did I follow Bryn? I saw Nomon was on. It shouldn't be so much of a process. Yo, Catch, what's her Twitch name though? Otherwise, we're just gonna go Ross. I don't want to like figure this out for too long. All right, let's just go over to Ross. We're wrapping up. We're wrapping up. We'll go say hi. They're doing awesome stuff over there. It's very cool. It seems pretty interactive. They're both great. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Let's enjoy the rest of Lightbox. Oh, it's not actually starting? Oh, you guys are killing me. All right, let's go send some love over there. Let's say hi. Hi. I need some water so bad. I can't believe it. But thank you so much. Have an awesome Lightbox. We'll see if people want to come back next week and say hi, ask our questions. We'll always be here. Thank you very much. Let's go say what up and have a super creative and inspirational weekend. Thank you.